World War I, known in 1918 as the Great War, had finally ended. Germany and the Central Powers were defeated. The Allies, included the United States, France, and Britain, had won. During the Great War, 8.5 million people died. Of the soldiers who fought, 57 out of every 100 died. Now the world leaders had to pick up the pieces, sign the peace treaty, and figure out a way to avoid the war in the future.
The world must create an international body whose purpose is to maintain world peace.
One that can sort out international disputes when they occur.
We can call it the League of Nations.
Most of the nations of the world are behind this.
Where would it be?
The League of Nations would be based in Geneva, Switzerland, since Switzerland was a neutral country and did not fight in World War I.
Sounds good. It already has an international organization, the Red Cross.
So what would the League of Nations do during the dispute?
First, it could call on the nations in dispute to sit down and discuss the problem in an orderly and peaceful manner.
If one nation has seemed to be the wrongdoer, the League verbally sanctioned them.
What does that mean?
Warn the aggressor to back off another nation's territory or face the consequences.
What if that didn't work?
Step 2 would be economic sanctions, something to financially disrupt the aggressor nation. If they saw bankruptcy as a real possibility, the people in that nation would force their government to accept the League's decision.
How'd that work?
The League of Nations would order its members not to trade with an aggressor nation.
If the League of Nations could enforce a universal boycott against a country, no war would ever come about.
But what if economic sanctions failed?
If economic sanctions failed, the League of Nations would resort physical sanctions or military force. Who's military? Britain and France are severely depleted strength-wise after World War I. They couldn't provide the League with the backing it needed.
True, neither Britain nor France have the funds to pay for an army since World War I nearly bankrupted them.
The chance of another large-scale war occurring is quite unlikely.
America should not get dragged into wars all across the globe. America should take the isolationism path.
What's isolationism?
A policy of being isolated, remaining apart from the affairs of interests of other groups.
Especially the political affairs of other countries. No one wants to be in a league with Germany or Russia.
Germany won't be allowed to join the League since they started the last war.
Russia won't be allowed since the communist government murdered the Russian royal family and scares us all.
It's a bad idea, this League of Nations.
The League of Nations has come about by no plan of our conceiving. By the hand of God has led us unto this way. We cannot turn back. We can only go forward, with America to show us the way.
I will vote against the League of Nations and vote to reject any treaty that includes it. America needs to take care of America and only America. We have no business getting involved in other countries' affairs.
Yes, we do. Sometimes people call me an idealist. Well, that's the way I know I am an American. America is the only idealist nation in the world.
I don't like one of the rules.
Which one?
Article 10. It could require the United States to commit economic or military force to maintain the security of member nations.
No, it doesn't, and I should know. I wrote it.
The United States has veto power over any decision.
So we wouldn't have to go along with the League of Nations if we disagreed with their decisions?
The United States would not be legally bound to the League's dictates, but we would be mortally bound to adhere to the League's resolutions.
As a former president, I would object because the U.S. could be forced into a war against its will.
The combined pressure of all the world's nations will prevent the unlikely possibility that the U.S. could be forced into war against its will.
Other nations are horrified at their losses in the Great War. That will make them careful in negotiations.
If we had a League of Nations in 1914, the world would not have been thrown into the chaos of the Great War.
The question of this hour, therefore, is no whether a beautifully phrased and perfect document has been written, but whatever it is, the best hope we have.
I think we should make changes to the League of Nations character to protect the U.S. interest before we join the League of Nations.
What if the League of Nations adopts a plan to reduce armaments? We have to reserve the right to increase our weapons if threatened with invasion or engaged in war.
I'm against this. The League of Nations would threaten U.S. sovereignty. We'd have to follow directions from an international body.
Unless, of course, the U.S. consider decisions of the League as suggestions only.
We can't join the League to help make decisions, and when talk of war comes up, withdraw our cooperation. It would be better not to join at all.
Wilson says the League of Nations will be a great brotherhood of nations devoted to the service of God and democracy without a single selfish thought. That's not what happened after the war.
True, Dad. These very same countries seized every foot of territory they could, grabbing it out from under helpless people everywhere.
So what would the United States do?
We need to sign the Versailles Treaty and join the League of Nations.
No, I intend to do everything in my power as senator to see the U.S. does not join the League of Nations or sign the Versailles Treaty.
President Wilson suffered a massive stroke in October 1919. No compromise was ever reached, so the Senate blocked the United States from joining the League of Nations and from signing the Versailles Treaty. In June of 1921, a new President Harding, signed the separate peace treaty. The United States never joined the League of Nations.